Good morning. It's 9 a.m. We'd like to start the meeting, the May 21st, 2024 meeting works. We're calling the meeting to order. Approval of the minutes for Tuesday, April 16, 2024. Do I have a motion?
You do?
I'll second it. This is Doug.
Yeah. I will.
We have a motion and a second. Minutes have been approved. Passes. Any comments, questions, discussion? No? Okay, let's move to public comment. Dan?
Jan Siebert Warman, P O Box 778 Cannon Beach. So I had asked if you have some time for questions yesterday, and this is what Karen suggested, and I'm willing to start off with my questions today here. And I wanted to say that first off, that I really do believe we're all in this together. And I'm asking these questions in the spirit of community. So what is helpful to our community? Just, I think getting some clarity is really important. And I am not an engineer by any way, shape, or form. So I guess first off, should I just go through my questions? And now I've gotten more information here from you this morning, so I will go back and read all this. But let me just quickly go through my questions.
Okay.
And I don't know if you want them one by one and then you try to answer for me now, or should I just go through everything now?
Why don't you go ahead and read your question so everybody can hear it? And then when we get to this topic on the agenda, I may have you repeat those, but I'd also like you to give me a copy of them just for the meeting minutes.
Okay, so that won't be now because they're only written for me to look at.
Okay,
But I'll do that, yeah.
sure.
Okay, so the first one is, when did Cannon Beach first start working with Windsor engineers? And what was the project? Because I don't think this was the first project we worked with them on, but I could be wrong. So I'm just trying to understand that. And where are they located? I know they've got a company location in, I think it's near Vancouver, but I think maybe they're a bigger organization. So I wanted to understand that. And then with our water master plan, I remember that happening. And did we finalize that in 2017? I thought we did.
Yes,
And then I thought that was going to be good for 20 years.
yes.
So we're still in the midst of that. And then I wanted to ask, how does it work? As far as Windsor is recommending work to be done? And then what is the process? Do they do the work then, or do we put it out to bid, or is it a pricing thing? It depends on how much we're paying for whatever. And I just wanted to understand that process better. And then as far as our phases, my understanding is we are still in phase one. We're doing the seismic valves, but I think they're mostly done. Is that correct? And then the phase two, my understanding is that we are replacing the PVC pipes and we're replacing the concrete pipes from the springs to the treatment plant and then to the Midtown tank and we're replacing that with HDPE pipe. And could you please explain what the basic difference is between the two kinds of pipes as far as PVC and HDPE? Then as far as the depth of the pipes, I think these new pipes are going to be quite a bit deeper, and I think that's because of the seismic question. if I'm understanding it correctly. So I'm just wanting to know that that's the truth of that. And that I'm understanding it correctly. And then, I think there has been a question going around about the lifespan of these old pipes, so-called, the PVC pipes, that they're not really at the end of their lifetime, but there is a reason for putting in these other pipes instead. So I'd like clarity on that, please. Then with the gravity running the water that we have now, the way it's working now, if we put in our new piping system, what would happen if we lost power? Because I'm hearing that we would have to be with the new piping system, we'd have to have pumps that would require electricity. And how would we do that if we didn't have electricity? If we have a big, Cascadia or whatever, how would that work? As far as the new piping? And then phase 2, is that currently on hold due to with the conference center, the issue there? Okay. And trying to understand the concrete tank situation. I have heard it's still in good shape, so could we reuse that? Is there a reason we don't want to reuse that? And I know that Bruce was talking about redundancy, so would it be good to still use that concrete tank along with the new tank? And what is the new tank made of? And in phase 3, so the new tank would be eventually located to where the old tank is now, or at least next to it. So would it be good to have both of them there? Or would there be no reason to do that? So, then with the backbone project, how deep would those pipes be along 101? And then I also wondered, do we have a desalinization system already? No. Okay, that's what I thought. Okay. And for now, that's it.
Thank you, Jen. You're gonna find you're gonna have.
All good questions.
Yes.
All good questions, I
A lot of
think.
Answers that you.
They are, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much. Anybody on Zoom? I don't think so. So.
Real quick, this is Travis Torman with Windsor Engineers. I had a technical difficulty, so I was a couple minutes late, but just letting you know that I am here and happy to assist with any of the discussion or answering questions. But
Thank you.
I'll wait to be asked if you want my input.
Thanks, Travis. I will lean on you when we get to this topic.
Welcome.
Yeah.
Okay, so.
This is Doug. Just as we're doing some administrative stuff here, I wanted to thank Karen for sending the slides out early. I was able to download them. I have them over here on a separate computer, and I'll be reading as we go along. So if you see the side of my head, it means I'm reading the slides on the other computer. So, thank you.
So read out loud. So, all right, thank you. Let's move on to the utility relief.
Oh, yeah.
Do I have a motion to approve staff recommendation?
And that's the real Sea Colony?
Mhm.
That
Okay.
is correct.
My understanding is after all the reading in depth, they're asking for the limit, which is $1,000 relief. They have much more of that in prior repairs and so forth, but I would say that's our limit. So I would I would be in agreement to give that relief.
Do I have a second?
This is Doug. I just have a factual question. There was some mention in there about possibly needing to bore under the creek. So where is
Yeah.
this located? I just don't know.
Oh,
Olivana,
Okay.
South end of town,
south end.
south of the academy.
yeah, right on Hemlock.
Okay. Okay. So when they reference the creek, it's some small creek.
Right.
Receiving stream.
It's-
dedicated receiving
It's a stream that goes through their property.
Okay. Okay. Got it. I can move to approve this.
Yeah.
Okay, so
And I do.
we have a motion and a second, okay. All in favor?
I
Aye.
Okay, any
Aye.
discussion? Any discussion? I just want to make a comment that, I don't think they requested for the 1394.23. I just want to make sure that, our policy says that we are allowed to give them $1,000, not up to what they're requesting. Just wanted to make sure that we all understand. If they're not requesting anything, it was approved, but our policy says $1,000.
Yep.
Okay. All right. Move on. Scott, do you have a question? No?
No, I'm fine.
Okay. Action items.
Okay. So what we had this morning was update for from Civil West on the bridge. And so Tim's got COVID, so he's gonna be remote, and Shannon, his project manager, is on with us, and we're gonna go over the presentation that they provided. And if you guys have any questions, please feel free to ask. But this is where we are on the First Street Bridge project.
All right, First Street Bridge. Okay.
This is the one that we
Hello.
got the grant money to finish assessing. Morning, Shannon.
Good morning. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yeah, we can hear you great.
Perfect. Well, yes, as Karen just mentioned, Tim has COVID and so do I. Fun stuff. It's going around the office. I'm doing a little bit better than he is. So unfortunately, he will not be joining us this morning. But so far, we are just a brief update. We're working on our outreach plan. And so obviously, it sounds like a lot of you are familiar with this project. And so just a brief overview on what the project is. We're doing an assessment on the First Street Bridge to determine if we can either rehabilitate, which would be like retrofitting the bridge, or if we would need to reconstruct the bridge in order for it to be seismically fit. So it's been determined that the bridge itself currently, due to its timber pile construction and its shallow depth, is not. It would just require either of those two options. So we're finishing up the seismic mitigation efforts, and so we've developed this outreach plan to make sure that we're getting the proper feedback we need. Our ultimate goal from here is to go for a BRIC grant to do the construction itself. So this project is going to do the thorough assessment and then do the design phases of the project to get it ready. And we'll be touching base. So this touching base throughout with both our identified stakeholders, continuing to identify stakeholders, and then City Council, and we identify you, the Public Works Committee, as definitely one of the most important stakeholders as part of this project. So on the first page here, you'll see our outreach objectives, and that's the plan here. So it's just an overview of the project, the roles and responsibilities for implementing the strategies and tools outlined in the plan, our avenues of coordination, and then our objectives and approach. So if you want to scroll to the next page, this is our project schedule. So this version of the plan, we will see that this plan is going to continuously update as we go along the project. So it's not stuck in stone. And in fact, we're inviting as much feedback as possible to keep growing the outreach strategies. And again, as part of the goal to obtain a BRIC grant to do the construction of the project, engagement touch points is a huge component. And so we are tracking as many engagement touch points as we can, and included in that is taking that feedback from the engagement. So this is the current schedule, and it includes meetings, including today's, on that schedule, and our touch points with City Council as planned currently, and we'll continue to update the schedule as we do more public outreach. If you want to continue scrolling down, and this is available, Karen can send it out after, and I can also attach it to the chat after we're done talking. As mentioned earlier, this plan includes our project roles and responsibilities, and for staff that we've identified that we'll be working with, and including the geotechnical expert for the city of Cannon Beach, your contracted expert. So this is about your funder, where the funds for this project have come from, and our identified need for 4 sub-consultants. It's possible that there might be 3. Environmental and archaeological might be the same sub-consultant. And then those will be directly contracted through the city, but as part of this project and the funding as forth. So we've identified that there will be 4, including a geotechnical, a structural, environmental, and archaeological. The geotechnical is the first one that we will be working to identify, and it kind of identifies the roles and responsibilities of those roles. On page 3 is our project outreach approach. So we're kind of here at 3.1, identifying interested stakeholders and agencies. And this is where we could use your help, is to help us build this list, and that'll be on a following page. But we're right here with identifying who we need to touch base with this project and where we need to go to move forward. We've identified the regulatory agencies and avenues for coordinating and to be compliant with environmental laws. But as this grows, we know that Karen has already enlightened us on several different people that we should touch base with. We're using feedback from Karen and from Trevor about successful outreach venues in the past, and that included creating a web page on the city website. So we haven't developed that yet. As I said, this is a work in progress outreach plan. We see it evolving over time as the project progresses. And so we are going to work with IT to develop a page on the website where we can put the status of the project as we move along. And we'll also include that timeline that we had earlier on that website, and as the progress updates, anything that we've done moving forward. So when we get the contractors the consultants under contract, we'll put who they are and what they're doing, and how that's going, and the results of those, and like feedback from city council meetings or feedback from this meeting will be included on that web page. On the following pages too, we have a stakeholder outreach strategy page. And then ultimately, when we're developing the construction timeframe, we'll be doing a community assessment prior to it. So on the page that Karen's currently on, these are our currently identified stakeholder roles and the coordination with them and how they play into this project, and when they play into the project. So we see this page as the one that maybe you could help with the most, potentially looking through and seeing who we might be missing, and possibly even connecting us directly to them. So that would be a good one to look at. And we could dive through if you want to, or we could come back to it, but I think we could scroll down to our current outreach involvement tools. Again, our first and foremost involvement tool will be the city webpage. So any other outreach will be directing people to that webpage, because then we'll have one consistent avenue for communication. And we just know that that will be the best venue of choice. I'm so sorry. Am I talking over somebody that wanted to jump in?
No, we're good.
Okay, sorry about that. It just sounded like I was talking over someone, which I tend to do. So my bad. All right, cool. So the project website, again, that's one consistent venue, one communication directive. So like we can just continuously push the mission there. From there, we have agency coordination that'll continue throughout the project. Community assessment, again, that's during the construction schedule. I mentioned that on the following page. It is an assessment, or is a sample assessment that we might be using, and that will continue to grow. We're hoping to develop a contact and comment response database, including information on those that would like to stay in touch on this project. So we'll be gathering that information during in-person meetings, but outside of those meetings, all contact and inquiries will be gathered through city staff. And so we're hoping to build responses that we get a lot, and also counting as many touch points as we can, because again, as part of the BRIC grant, a huge part of that is engagement touch points. And we want to make sure that we're getting all the feedback we need from people, and then also counting that towards like how many people we've touched as part of this project. Another avenue we'll be using hopefully is social media. We'll be working with IT and the Public Works Director to update on social media when there's a project update, and that will lead them back to the webpage. Again, one consistent avenue, but multiple venues to promote that we have updates. I think utilizing the Cannon Beach Gazette would be a great option, and that'll be periodically. And it could be when we need more public engagement rather than our identified stakeholders, but kind of growing our identified stakeholders, utilizing the Cannon Beach Gazette would be a great option. We will be attending meetings like this one regularly to update you on the status of our project, and also city council meetings. I'm on the next page if you want to scroll down a little bit more. And then we've discussed also doing an open house as the project progresses, possibly doing a full presentation on like the history of the project, how it came to be, obviously where the funding is coming from, why we see that this bridge needs to be seismically resilient, moving forward into the work that the consultants have done, and continuing on the status of the project. Yep, and you can keep scrolling down. Those are example questions of a community assessment, and it was really great when we sent it to Karen. She filled in quite a few information, including the new, I apologize. Is it the information? It's like when tourist information center that will be also going through construction probably around the exact same time as this project. I believe, I forget the formal name of it. Moving down beyond that, this is just a list of our engagement touch points. You can see that we're at the very beginning of our project, so we don't have many touch points. This is very few, and so this is very raw draft of this outreach plan, and we anticipate that this will be growing immensely. So and that's where we're at right now. Anybody have thoughts, feedback, stakeholders that we've yet to identify?
This is Doug. Can I ask you just two hopefully easy questions? I think they are.
Perfect. Yes.
One of my questions would be, if you're successful in getting the grant, who would be the funding agency? And I think I found it in your chart. I think it's FEMA, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. And then you also use the term, I think, BRIC grant.
Correct.
Did I hear you right?
Yes.
What is a BRIC grant?
So it is also another FEMA grant. Here, I'll try to pull up the page. It's a Building Resilient Infrastructure and Communities grant. So the grant we do have right now, so we do have this grant, is to do the seismic assessment. This is just the outreach component of that grant. But
Okay.
this next one would be to actually fund the construction plans that are being developed as part of this grant.
Okay, so the typical long federal acronym. All right.
Yeah, exactly.
And then
Yeah.
the last one is it looks like the ultimate focus, it would be a structure that's seismically resilient.
Yeah.
Is there any relation between the seismic work and consideration of the tsunami resilience?
As far as that goes, the ultimate goal would be for it to be seismically resilient for a distant offshore quake, not necessarily a tsunami. Correct me if I'm wrong, Karen. That was the ultimate goal.
You're correct.
Okay. So it would not necessarily be that, but we can't say that for sure at this point. But the ultimate goal was a distant offshore earthquake.
So it'd be that the ultimate structure would be concussively, if I can use that term, resilient, but not necessarily resilient to a tsunami wave.
At this point, correct. Yes.
Well, okay, that's interesting. All right.
Yeah.
Doug, do you have,
Any other questions from the committee?
I have a comment or a suggestion. You mentioned that you wanted to have a public meeting, saying where the money's coming from, the history. I would prefer to have that meeting like right away. Because that will avoid a lot of people asking so many questions. So if we just get that meeting out and start talking to people, just giving them history, where the money's coming from, those things, and get it done now before we move on, because I think that will save us a lot of time in the long run. So thought.
Sure. I think there's a chance that Tim just attended a city council meeting to kind of address that. So that would be a public venue meeting.
Yeah.
And I think he attended that to address if you're concerned about where the money is coming from. It is a FEMA grant.
Yeah.
But
We know that, but the public is, so I'm not concerned about us.
Okay.
So Public Works, we all know that, but but the public.
The general public.
General
Yeah.
public, we will get those questions
Sure.
over and over again, no matter how many meetings we have, and that's our history.
Yeah.
So I think if we just have a meeting, we have it recorded, we can always point it back to, it's like, hey.
Right, that's good.
My meeting.
Yeah.
It's just our history.
A good example is our water resiliency has been going on for over 5 years,
Yes.
but Jan came with questions that have been answered all throughout the project many, many years ago, but they're still being asked at this point in the project. So I think, Shannon, what the committee's feedback is, try to get as much of this out up front as we can, because those questions are going to be asked all throughout this project repeatedly. for
definitely
people that miss
understand.
those different public meetings.
And I just would like.
Perfect.
That's
I
great.
think what would be great, I think so right at this point, we would ideally work on the website first and then have that public meeting to kind of, so then we have that solidified in writing so that people can
Yeah.
also read it afterward. So yeah, I definitely think as soon as possible, having that public meeting, that ultimate goal was for us to be there in person today to kind of also bring more attention to it. But yeah, I agree. I think a public meeting would be great. And also we have so much information already on the bridge and its current structure, what it looks like, and our next steps already laid out. So once we get that in a public venue, then having a public meeting to kind of just point people and be like, hey, we're here, this is what we're doing, would be a really great idea, and where the money's coming from, right?
Yeah. When
Absolutely.
you guys are ready, you let me know and we'll get a slot on the council agenda where we can kick it off at that point and then get some more informal public meetings going.
Yeah, like I think an open house throughout, I really see that as being a popular venue. And I know that my mom, she lives down in Manzanita, but she comes up to Cannon Beach when you have the history presentations locally
Yeah.
at the library. I think that would be a perfect venue. So
Okay.
I don't know if that works with you. But yeah, anyway, that's kind of what I was imagining.
Great, thank you.
Okay.
Perfect.
But the main communication point for this project, as it is in most projects concerning infrastructure, is going to be our Public Works Committee, because these are monthly. We give updates.
Yep.
The projects monthly. And then like Shannon mentioned, we're going to have the spot on the city website, kind of like what Jeff did with the TSP, where people can go to that. It's a central repository for what the progress is. Any questions and answers and things will be posted there.
And also I heard once in a while the Gazette is,
Right, and we'll do an article periodically to update in using the Gazette. And then when there's a update on the website, we'll use Facebook to let people know there's been an update posted and a link that people just click on and it takes them right to the website. But having one central repository will prevent miscommunication or documents being put out in different forums that are conflicting with each other. We steer everything back to one project page, which will be on the city's website.
Perfect, yes.
Okay,
great.
all right. Any other questions from the committee?
No.
All right,
No, I'm glad that we did get one, and that is it's not going to be tsunami proof.
Yeah.
It would be a distant quake.
right.
That's very important.
Yeah, it's earthquake resilience is what we're doing. And that is what the state requires when we're doing infrastructure projects. We're doing this based on what the state's requirements are. And that is reflected in the master plan with our water and wastewater infrastructure as well. Okay. All right, Shannon, thank you very much.
Hope you feel better.
Thank you. I really
All right,
appreciate it.
cool, but I thought we were done with it.
It is going around. Stan, if you want to just email your questions afterward, because we've already done the public comment segment. So you can just email us a question and I'll make sure you get the answer concerning this project. So the next project I want to go on is the water resiliency. And I gave you guys the copy of what was updated to the council. I don't want to take you back through that unless you guys feel that there's value in doing that. I think you know the project really, really well. But the most important thing is I wanted to draw your attention to the memo that's attached to that because it addressed all the questions that Ann answered or asked. And that plus many more that have come up when we did the article in the paper concerning the easement and such. So all those questions have been addressed. Memo put together by his team at Windsor. But I did want to touch on a couple of the comments or questions that Jan asked relative to the process. It's important to know that this project is funded through federal funding. All of you guys know that. And with that comes strict requirements concerning our procurement process and how any subcontractor is awarded work associated with this project and the funding with it. And Business Oregon is the oversight of that. So all throughout this project, we have used the Oregon state procurement laws when it comes to bidding out the process, the project, doing qualified based interviews for the subs that have put in for these projects, and then awarding the jobs accordingly. All this goes through Business Oregon for their oversight and their blessing that we have followed the process to the letter of the law. If we don't do that, our funding is at risk. So there'd be no reason why we would want to stray from that. So that has been used from day one on the project. It'll continue to be used all throughout the completion of the project. Jan's one question regarding who actually does the work. Windsor is an engineering firm. They're not a construction firm. So what they're doing right now is the design and the engineering associated with this project. When it comes to the construction, the documents are prepared and that is put out to bid, just like we did the engineering piece of it. So a construction subcontractor would be awarded the construction phase of the project. And there is oversight of that. Some of that may be oversight through Windsor if we include that in the scope of work, because the city staff needs that expertise and that assistance. And our staff is also involved in that. They're the boots on the ground, making sure that this is built the way we've asked it to be built, because at the end of the day, we're the ones having to maintain it long term. And so there's kind of a dual role there, if you will. And so I think that answers that part of it.
Right. My analogy is like building a house. They're the design, the architect, and the subcontractors do the construction.
Yes,
So the subcontractors are going to come in, but this is a great memo,
Yes.
Jan. if you
Yes.
Read this.
it is.
It covers a lot
Ditto.
of your deal.
Fantastic
Very nice.
job just boiling it down to just the layman's understanding of a very complicated project. But I do want to say something is that there's been questions asked about why would we want to replace parts of the line that is, quote, fairly new, meaning it has had failure recently and we've replaced it with PVC. The answer to that is the PVC is not seismically sound. It does not meet the state's seismic requirements. And that is the entire driver of this project, is that we're trying to harden the infrastructure so that if and when we have a seismic event of any magnitude, whether it's a 3-pointer or a 9-pointer, that we have the best chance of our infrastructure sustaining that movement of the earthquake. And so in doing that, the HDPE pipe is what has been proven to be the most earthquake resilient pipe. And that is why we selected that. There's many municipalities along the state of Oregon and across the world that is using HDPE pipe. And that is what we have selected as the standard that goes into the ground in Cannon Beach. And so that is the reason we're replacing PVC with HDPE.
Very good.
Not a matter of if the PVC was fairly new, it is not seismically sound. So it doesn't matter if it was put in a year ago. It does not meet the standards. So it needs to be replaced. And I'll compare that to your home. If you're going to rewire an old home that you purchased, you wouldn't just rewire part of it and leave part of it with the old wiring. You would rewire the entire home to address the aging wiring in that home. This is the same thing that we're doing with this project, is that you can't just do part of it. You don't take an HDE pipe and marry it up with a PVC pipe. You've accomplished nothing because part of your infrastructure is still subject to failure by doing those kind of shortcuts. So that's why we're doing the entire thing with HDPE. Okay.
That's very good. And then the one question also about the power outage. I think we have generators, correct? We kick in.
Well, and I think that's addressed in this memo, and I will
Yes.
refer to Travis to talk about the misnomer about us needing pumps and such, because it's beyond my pay grade of being able to articulate this accurately. So Travis, if you would speak to that, I would appreciate it.
Yeah, I ended up having to step away for a minute, so I don't know if there's other questions I missed that I need to help, but you're asking specifically about power and pumping generators?
Yes, the question relative to the fact that we are on gravity, but the rumor had gone around that the way we're designing it currently is going to require us to have pumps and we'd no longer be on gravity.
Correct.
So if we lost power, we would be in trouble.
Yeah. Okay, so a few things related to that topic. First of all, we are the new pipe will have as much or more flow capacity as the existing pipe. HDPE is very smooth walled, especially compared to concrete. And so there's no additional friction. This pipe does not need to be buried deeper than PVC or concrete pipe. I can talk later about the one spot where we will have deeper pipe, but the bottom line is that we do not need to do any pumping because of this project. It's all going to be gravity system where it's gravity
Okay.
now. So there's no change there at all.
And it's worth pointing out that we currently use pumps late in the year when the springs do not meet the total demand.
Yes.
And that system will remain the same. And there is backup generation
We
there.
got backup generation on site.
Right. That's what Trevor's
That's not changing in the new design.
cool.
And the point out, evidence on HDPE based on the Japanese experience in their last major earthquake, HDPE survived, PVC did not.
Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah, there's all kinds of white papers on the internet. If you just Google HDPE, you'll see
Yeah.
just a myriad of studies that have been done on this HDPE pipe. But Japan has been one of the top users and the proof in the pudding, if you will, of the resiliency of this pipe. It's incredibly interesting. If you have the time, go up and read those
Yeah.
studies. And so I think you will walk away with a great confidence of why we chose this pipe.
One of the reasons is all the joints are fused, only
Yeah.
referred to as welded instead of slip joints.
Oh.
That's what's failed a lot of times. on
That's your typical
PVC.
failure point.
Not only does it shatter because it's brittle, but the things pull apart.
After it's welded, it's one continuous piece of pipe.
Beautiful.
Okay.
Yeah.
Another question that Jan asked is where are we in the current phases? And that's outlined in great detail in the presentation, but I'm going to give you a thumbnail update here. Phase one, the actual construction has started. They've worked on all the piping and valves and whatnot associated with the seismic valves. They're waiting for some parts to arrive to finish phase one completely. We expect those parts to arrive before the fall.
Yeah, one thing I'd like to point out is one of the delays in getting materials is the requirement that everything be sourced USA. There's all materials, all valves, all seal, all parts, all fittings have to be manufactured in the United States.
Yeah.
So
Is that per grants?
that's for federal
Per federal, okay.
structure
Okay.
grant that was awarded that is the basis for all of this work being
It
done.
is a requirement for this particular type of funding.
So it's sort of like supply demand. I mean, you
Yeah.
sort
And
of,
then on phase two, you're correct, Jan, as printed in the newspaper. Phase two and beyond is held up pending the conference center agreeing to the easement. And that is in the process of condemnation as we speak.
Hmm.
The design is
I wasn't aware of that.
not done,
Right.
but we can only go so far until we know whether we have that easement. If we don't have the easement, we've got to do some redesign.
Right.
And the one part, Travis alluded to it, one part that will be deeper than the standard 4 feet of cover, it's just like all the other pipes, will be where we do a directional drilling up to the new tank from the existing spring road. And that just the nature of the drilling, there'll be terrain much deeper. And I think,
And when is the target date for a decision on that?
I'm sorry.
When is the target date for getting a decision?
a year and a half ago,
That's what I thought. I mean, it just,
Yeah, it's way overdue, but this is
Wait.
why the city is just moving forward with condemnation as we can't wait any longer.
no.
So, Jan, you asked, when did we start working with, Windsor? It's been over 2 years since they were awarded this project. And where are they located? They're in Ridgefield, Washington, although they have people, positioned all over. Yes.
all over the country.
Yes, all over the country. And so they have people that are nearby here within an hour's drive here. And so it's not an issue when we need someone here in town to look at part of the project. They can be here in person.
I think I have somebody coming here in the morning.
Yeah.
Do face-to-face work and assessment in the field.
And then,
Always available to, whether they're in Duluth, Minnesota or Ridgefield, Washington. They will come here when we need them.
Yeah, but in fact, I went back to my notes. We had our original in-depth review of the
Yeah.
engineering firms, June 2nd of 2022.
Yep.
It's been 2 years.
Yep.
So it's very good. And that was a very, very thorough presentation.
yeah. Yeah, Scott was part of the board when we did the interviews for the candidates that submitted bid interest in the jobs. So,
And there was some mention of the, how this relates to the, master plan.
Yeah.
Which was initiated back in the 18th.
our water master plans were done in 2015. And they were finalized in 2017 because the state made that SHRAMP requirement where we had to have that resiliency aspect to our master plans. So we had to get that added to the master plans. And that took some time. Civil West did our master plans and they augmented it, added that seismic aspect to the master plans, and they were finalized in 2017, just after I hired on with the city.
And city staff and council were involved in all of that. I was on the
Right.
committee.
Yeah, and they are a 20-year,
It's been underway a long time.
they are a 20-year master plan. When I updated council, I gave them an updated list of all the master plan projects. We're about halfway through our water master plan. With the exception of a couple of projects, the Haystack Heights Water Loop project being one. Everything else that's left to do in the water master plan is the line replacement all throughout town. And as I mentioned to council, if we get our backbone along Highway 101, we could address all of the water lines throughout the community on an as-needed basis. Whereas when the water master plan was put together, it was put together with the thought of we would rip the town up in phases to replace all those lines. If we get that backbone along Highway 101, then we're not in a position where we have to tear the town up to do that proactively. We could do it on a as-needed basis, such as when we have a failure or we're going to do a project and the road's going to be torn up anyway, we would take that opportunity to replace the line on an as-needed basis. It's less disruptive to our businesses, the flow of traffic in town, the parking in town, our residences, and so on. So that would be the change in approach that we would take now that we know we can put that backbone along Highway 101.
And with the backbone, it's gonna minimize the impact of water outages when we do replace lines in town.
Very nice.
A backbone to loop it.
Yeah.
Okay,
Right.
Yeah, this gives us a complete loop of our water system. Right now, it's dependent on Hemlock.
Right.
And it's got much of the old pipe.
Yeah.
Most of the old pipe. And with this backbone, we would parallel that, but with a resilient pipeline. And when there are failures, we can tap into that and isolate sections of the city. One thing we wasn't talking about, we also have seismic valves planned for isolating different parts of the town.
Mm.
If one piece blows out, you can at least isolate it till you repair that.
Yeah.
And we have some of that.
Jan, you also asked the placement of the new tank. It is adjacent to the current tank, and there's a map on the project that shows you the exact location of it. But it's out from underneath the transmission lines that it now sits underneath. And Pacific Power had asked that if we rebuild this tank, that we get it out from underneath the transmission lines, because it is problematic where it sits today when they have to do work on those transmission lines. And you'll recall a couple of years ago, we had that transmission line was arcing. It was trying to catch fire. And so they evacuated that area and they had their workers up there working, and having that tank underneath was quite challenging. So that's why we're moving the tank out from underneath that. You asked what the material was of the new tank. It is concrete. Okay. You asked,
The construction is entirely different than the existing concrete.
right,
It's much better design, got
right. The way they build concrete tanks now is very different than they built them back in the day when this tank was built, but it is still concrete. You asked a great question, Jan, and it has come up several times. And we really did a deep dive on this and got multiple different expert viewpoints on this. And that was your question regarding, will we reuse this old tank? And when you say reuse, I'm assuming you mean, will we keep it, not demo it? And like I say, we went back and forth with that. We had to weigh the long-term maintenance of that tank with keeping it, or asking ourselves, do we really need it? And ultimately, at this point, we're leaning towards not keeping that tank, but we have not made that final decision yet. We still are holding out, waiting to see if there's anything that changes that decision. But at this point, with the information that we have evaluated and the 3 different companies that we've had take a look at that tank to see what it would take to seismically retrofit that tank, and or just try to keep it. All indications are it does not make sense for us to do that. But we have not finalized that. But I imagine that we will do that once the easement is in place and we begin to roll forward with the other aspects of the project. If there's anything that indicates something different, then we will make that change. But right now, it doesn't appear that we're going to keep it.
Karen, I'm sorry. Amber, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I just have a question related to what you're saying, Karen, about answering Dan's questions about the tank. In the current configuration where they are in the watershed and down below, as you're describing, kind of out of the way, the new tank being out of the way of the power lines, is there any concern about the creek swelling? Because that is really close to the creek right there. And I know from, spending time in the watershed that in winter months and in high flow times, that swells considerably right in the bend of the creek, which is pretty close to that tank. Was that taken into consideration when these things, when the site assessments were done?
I can't understand what you're saying.
Are you asking me,
Neither.
talking about the North Fork of the Ecola Creek, if the tank is going to affect the North Fork of the Ecola Creek?
Yeah, that's correct. I'm sorry, I'm driving, and so I'm sorry if that was muffled, but yes, that is my question: was the site consideration, given that it's right by the creek at the bend of the creek and how it swells in heavy rain and it's
No, it's not.
It's not next.
Nowhere
It's
near the
right
creek.
next, it's right next to the existing tank,
Right.
within 50 feet of the existing tank.
Creek's a
no,
ways away.
I'm sorry, I'm aware of that. What I'm talking about is if we were to have a seismic event, which is why we're building this in the first place, and if that tank were to swell or back, if the Ecola Creek were to have a massive surge, would that tank be safe? That's my question.
Yes, it would be safe.
Okay, thank you.
The water rising, yeah. Water rising in the creek would
Yeah, but this is,
Right.
rise the tank.
this is at 180 feet.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I
That
see
was-
what she's getting at, but it's nowhere near there. So,
No, yeah,
yeah,
good answer.
yeah.
Okay, I just wanted to ask.
It was a good question though, Amber. Thank you.
Yeah.
That's great.
Okay, I think I touched on all the questions that Jan had. I want to go back to the master plan for a minute. Because we talked about the duration of the master plan being 20 years. When we are doing this project, part of Windsor's scope that we asked of them was to update our water master plan as we're progressing on this project. And so they are including that so that we will have an updated water master plan when this is all said and
I
done.
so much appreciated that.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
I thought it was like, yes, we're not waiting another. 20
Yeah,
years.
exactly. We're not waiting another 20 years to start doing that.
I'm so happy when I read it.
Yeah, and quite frankly, like I say, we're halfway through, and if we're gonna address the rest of the water lines on an as-needed basis, then in essence, we're completed our master plan.
It's kind of like when you're under the hood, just take care of everything.
You got it. You got it.
Part of this is a all new hydraulic study of the entire system
Yeah,
to make sure we've got proper balance and proper flows where we need it.
yeah,
And that includes for fire safety as well.
Yeah.
And
Great.
Any other questions on the water master plan or the memo or the prezo that I gave to council from the
No, I
committee?
think that was great, thank you.
Very,
Steve,
very
yes,
good.
Thank you, Steve, that is not, he's not here, but thank you for all of it.
Hey, Amber, you still have your hand up. Do you have another question?
No, she's driving, so.
Okay.
So hopefully, the main thing is I want the Public Works Committee to be intimately familiar with the project and to feel confident that they've got all the information they need. And you guys are our stewards to help us educate the community when questions come up. Feel free to use the materials, refer to the materials, ask for anything else you guys need to be able to answer questions that come up. But you guys should be as familiar with this project as staff is. And if I'm not updating you guys enough on it, ask me. I feel like I've talked about it to nauseam that you guys are sick of hearing it. So I don't want to overwhelm you with information, but I certainly want to keep you equipped so that you know where we're at with the project and the status of every aspect of it.
I recommend watching the meetings, so being here when Karen is talking to council. Those are very informative meetings.
Sure.
So maybe you can maybe send the committee maybe when you're going to be presenting to the council.
Right.
Send us an email saying, hey, I'm
Okay.
going to present it to the council. That way I think the committee will know
Yeah.
if they want to participate, if you want.
And the reason I steered Jan towards the committee yesterday when this came up in coffee with the counselor is you guys know how jam-packed the council's agenda is. And so when we're on the agenda, we get about 10 minutes for whatever our
Right.
topic is. And it's never enough to,
Have to be very crisp.
yeah, I mean, you have to be tight and crisp and get
Those are
in
the
and get out. And
But you get a lot of good information.
Oh,
with the
yeah.
Budget.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
meeting. That
so
would be
I really thought this forum would lend itself to Jan's questions and anybody else that wants to ask questions. You know, the goal here is to get the information out. It's not to withhold anything.
That information out, Jan.
Yeah, this memo is very in-depth. You'll,
Yeah, so utilize those two documents.
yeah, right. It's really good.
And then lastly, on the Public Works items here is we presented our budget last week. And I did mine all in the one day. And so everything went great. I think council, for all intents and purposes, has agreed to the budget. So we should be adopting that in meetings coming up here. So if you have the time, listen to that meeting. I went through everything of Public Works and started it off as I do every year, thanking council and the budget committee for the money they've given us. And I showed them the projects that we had spent that money on, and the guys have been incredibly busy this year, as always.
Yep.
But it gave me a chance to kind of tout each of the teams and how hard they've worked and what all they've done. So if you have time, listen to that segment. I came in off my deathbed to present my budget because I was scared Bruce was going to present it for me.
I love that.
Medication,
I think I got Bruce sick in the meantime. He
medication.
sat next to me at the table. So he's out sick now. Anyway, so
Yeah.
yeah, so if you're wondering about the budget.
Social distancing.
If you're wondering about the budget, you can listen to last week's budget committee meeting. And that's
Hi,
it.
Karen.
That's it for me.
Go ahead, Travis.
I was wondering if it'd be okay if I just threw in a couple of quick comments about some of the things that were asked early on.
Absolutely.
Sure.
So, desalinization, it's something that, about 3 years ago, we did a water source capacity study on behalf of the city because there was questions about,
Yeah.
the reliability of the springs and Ecola Creek maybe in a period of drought. And, it was determined that most likely we are okay if the city doesn't grow significantly. But there's never a full guarantee because we don't know how bad a drought could happen. Desalinization was talked about, and I think we identified a possible study for how that could be evaluated further. It's not very common in the US to do desalinization for drinking water source. There's a large plant in Oceanside down in San Diego County, and there's some small systems in the San Juan Islands in Washington State that have them. But it tends to be more expensive on a per gallon basis than conventional either groundwater or surface water sources. But it would be a independent of drought. So it's possible, but it's not an easy fix.
No,
It's not an easy backup
You don't want it.
option.
We do have as an emergency,
Yeah, water, so that's what I was gonna touch on, Travis. The discussion with desalination was before we received the significant water treatment trailer that Rick
Yes.
got. So we have that in our arsenal now too.
Right, we do,
We do
so.
have a little.
It's not little, it's
It's not-
pretty sophisticated, so we can
Yes.
treat groundwater or surfaced water with that system.
Yeah.
So we do have
Yeah,
that.
if we found ourselves in some dire straight situation, we do at a certain capacity have the capability to do that.
To treat water.
Yeah.
It'd be a last ditch situation. But we do have it in our,
Arsenal, yeah.
yes, yes.
So we're
Yeah, that's
pretty
great.
well covered.
Okay.
Yep,
Oh.
good. It's great.
Go ahead, Travis.
Thank you, Travis.
Yep, next, one other item, there's been a lot of question about useful life remaining both in the existing pipes and also in the tank, the existing, Midtown tank, it was called main reservoir.
Right,
If there's no earthquake, then there is useful life left in all of those assets.
right.
The problem is that if there's a significant earthquake, it doesn't even have to be the main event, the big, Cascadia subduction of an earthquake. A medium-sized earthquake could cause a lot of breakages in the pipes, and it could cause failure in that tank, the existing tank. The existing tank, the concrete roof would separate from the columns supporting it, and it's but there's potential for failure, perhaps a major collapse, or perhaps a less severe, but still it'd crack and all the water would run out. So
Right.
that's why this seismic resiliency improvements are necessary. That doesn't mean that there aren't options for using the existing tank for redundancy. Then there's been a lot of discussions about whether or not to do that and how to do that. So those things are partially policy decisions, and we can provide whatever analysis is needed to support sound decision making on that. But those were just two of the things that I wanted to mention. The last one is Mike mentioned that the only place that we're planning to go deep with our pipelines is for that going up the trenchless, going up the hill. And the main reason we want to go deep, one of the main reasons is that if we're shallow, or if we did conventional trenching, we'd have to remove a lot of big trees. And if we go trenchless, we can avoid that.
Yeah.
And nothing will ever interfere with this pipeline. There's not gonna be any joints underground. It will be secure.
Good.
So, but we don't want to go deep on like along Highway 101. We want to just have normal depths that can be easily served for maintenance and tapping in new services and that sort of thing. So those are just some loose ends that I heard asked about. Thought I would throw in my 2 cents. Thank you.
I would point out where we cross the highway, we do directional drilling or boring, and it would be deeper than conventional. But as we travel parallel to the highway, it's gonna be just conventional depth.
And those are ODOT standards when you bore underneath. the highway.
Yes.
All their depths and their standards.
Yeah.
All
Yeah.
this in there right away, and they give us the standards that we're required to do,
Yeah,
not only in operation, but the construction.
So we're trying to minimize taking down these big trees.
right,
Okay, got it.
yeah,
Thank you.
Same thing along the whole route. We've spent a lot of time looking at the routing to avoid tree damage.
right,
We're going an expensive route up by the springs by using probably pipe bursting. So we don't even trench. We go below the roots in the existing path of the pipe
Okay,
in order to avoid that.
thank you.
I would like to point out just one other thing on the useful life of the PVC is in place. Since I've been here, I've seen 3 significant blowouts
yeah,
of that useful pipe.
yeah,
The most recent one was down by Logan Creek on Fifth South, or on Fifth Street. 2 others were on Ash Street, and there was no earthquake. It
Yep.
just plain blew out.
yep. It just spontaneously gave way. Yeah,
And that's that's what we're replacing.
yep.
Very good.
All right. I think that covers everything.
Very thorough.
Thank you very much. This was great information. Anything for the good of the order from anybody?
It is Public Works Week. So when you see your Public Works worker out in the community, show them some love.
Okay, I will. But
Ask
that's a good
before you
job.
kiss them. Yes, we don't, fire department has a grand opening, next Wednesday at 6 p.m. Hot dogs and
Yeah.
hot dogs.
Oh, cool.
Sorry, but please join us for, yeah. So that's all right. All right, guys, thank you so much.
Wrap.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Thanks, Travis.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Shannon.